As you know, at the moment I'm in Istanbul. Let's begin with a simple proposition. If I pay for a service, I would rather like that service to function. This isn't an outlandish demand. It is in fact the sort of bedrock expectation that separates civilization from the decrudescence of chaos. Yet here we are in the curious realm of the BBC's geo-blocking regime, where one may possess a perfectly valid television licence, a credible UK home address, a long-standing history of lawful payment and a VPN, and still be treated as if one were attempting to smuggle contraband marmalade across borders under cover of darkness. I speak, of course, about the BBC's new aggression towards VPN users. Call it digital hauteur, call it overzealous algorithmic border control, call it a bureaucratic tantrum masquerading as technical sophistication. Whatever the label, the fact is simple. I've paid for my license, I've upheld my part of the social contract, but the BBC now presumes to interrogate my IP address more sternly than MI5 screens embassy guests. It is clever, yes, but self-defeating in the manner of a man who locks his front door so efficiently he cannot get back inside to enjoy his own dinner. I have, in pursuit of sanity and the right to watch my own national broadcaster, deployed not one, not two, but 3 VPNs. IP Vanish, the old faithful, has come about as useful as a chocolate chastity belt. Private internet access, something I procured only yesterday and already feels like a regrettable flirtation in a low-lit bar. I want my money back. A NordVPN, the Scandinavian hope, the thing that apparently is perfect, the Viking shield in a world of data-slinging trolls, simply doesn't work. It sits there, obmunescent, refusing to negotiate, refusing to connect, and generally behaving like a Nordic saga where everyone dies in the snow before the plot begins, the sort of Nordic saga that's become mainstream on the BBC, which I can't access. Meanwhile, the BBC dusts its hands with satisfaction, declaring that its shiny new VPN detection technology works flawlessly. Well, yes, a fortress works flawlessly too when it seals in the inhabitants and leaves them to starve. Perhaps that is a subtle artistic statement, a Beckettian vision of public service broadcasting where one endlessly attempts and endlessly fails to watch the weather report. But my frustration doesn't rest solely on the technological absurdity. There's a broader institutional problem at play. The BBC's recent scandals, the collapsed standards in political editing, the frequent reliance on contractors with dubious records, the resignations, the disciplinary inquiries, the mysterious vanishing acts in Newsnight, and the almost operatic misjudgments in the Trump interview edits all point to an organisation struggling with identity, direction and purpose. It asks the public for trust but behaves with the jittery self-defensiveness of an organisation that no longer trusts itself. One cannot help but notice the creeping corporate instinct to lecture rather than inform, to curate rather than report, to shield rather than illuminate. This is not decrudescence, it's dissent. When the BBC begins to resemble an anxious medieval guild protecting its privileges rather than a modern broadcaster setting out to serve its audience, something fundamental has gone askew. And now they add VPN hostility to the mix. The message is clear. Pay your license fee, yes, but do not presume to access content from abroad, even with valid credentials. Never mind that the 21st century is a world of mobility, academic travel, research trips, global citizens. Never mind that the audience, the people actually paying for the BBC's existence, have needs that stretch beyond the M25. No, the BBC has decided to harden the gates, build digital moats, post algorithmic gargoyles along the ramparts. Well, very well, but there's a risk here. When you treat your own license fee payers as interlopers, do not be surprised when they consider ceasing to be license fee payers at all. I have reached the point I cannot access what I'm funding. I cannot rely on the technological infrastructure. I cannot excuse the cascade of scandals that has left the BBC's reputation resembling a wilting souffle, and I cannot in good conscience continue to pay for a service that behaves as if denying access were a form of moral improvement. I am, as of today, inclined to dump the BBC entirely. I shall think a little further about this, because I'm not rash by temperament, but the direction of travel is unmistakable. A broadcaster that becomes paranoid about its own audience is a broadcaster that has lost the plot. And let me make one final observation. A public service broadcaster must remember who the public is. If its technology is so zealous that it blocks legitimate users, and its culture so confused that it no longer knows how to uphold the standards that built its own myth, then it risks becoming irrelevant, a relic muttering to itself in the corner while the rest of us move on. For now I shall attempt for the fourth time to watch the BBC today using a new VPN. If this too fails, then I shall consider the matter closed, because if the BBC insists on treating its law-abiding licence payers like digital fugitives, then it should not be surprised that those licence payers decide to take their money elsewhere. I pay for a service, I expect a service, and if that service collapses into obmunition refusal, technical petulance, and the decrudescence of standards, I am under no obligation to underwrite its decline.